Hi everyone, John here with Radenso, wishing you a happy Friday as another week of our statewide and nationwide lockdown continues. So last week we had a pretty good response to the video we put out with us testing radar penetration of different things like glass, plastic, thin plastic, thick plastic, and then metal. So we got to thinking, from reading a lot of the comments on the video, we realized that we didn't test something that is probably even more relevant to you guys, which is different types of tints and then flat glass, which is something that a lot of people requested. And this is kind of a 2-for-1 for us because we have a lot of people ask us, especially on the custom install side of things, like even when it comes to GPS antenna placement, hey, can this go through a Range Rover windshield or through a Tesla windshield? Some of the earlier Tesla Model S's had like a metallic coating over the windshield, or at least people said that they did, that I've seen talked about a lot. So we said, hey, since everything's kind of slowed down because of COVID, what if we just took a week and did testing on a bunch of cars? Luckily, we're all car enthusiasts here, so we actually have a Tesla. We have a BMW. Those are both Jason's cars. Me and Mindy have the same Volkswagen chassis cars. Hers is a GTI, mine's a Golf R, but they use the same windows. Hers is tinted, mine is not. So we had the perfect test set to do some real A/B testing and have it really be relevant. So I think this is going to be kind of cool. Let's head outside and take a look at what these things do. Okay, so now we've come outside and set up a real-world test bench. We're going to take a look at various types of tints, ceramic, metallic, as well as plain glass, flat glass like you guys requested. What we have here is a Bushnell gun. It's a K-band gun shooting in our very fancy holder. And we've put our radar test set on the dashboard of this GTI, and it's shooting through the passenger window. So you've got a fairly direct line of sight from the gun to the radar test set. And if you look at the screen, you'll see that we have a really nice picture of the gun. It looks like we're sitting at maybe about minus 27. Let me rotate this a little bit. There we go, sitting at right about minus 28, 29 dB. And if you look at the side of the signal here, you can see that you don't just see the very big main beam, but you've also got a lot of visibility into, I don't want to call them side bands, but very low level radar energy that's surrounding the main carrier. Let's go ahead and roll the window up and see what happens. Okay, so right off the bat, you'll notice that we barely lost any sensitivity, we barely lost any signal strength. I would say maybe about 1 dB. However, I think the most noticeable difference is if you look at the energy that we are looking at around the main carrier, we did lose visibility into that energy. So it doesn't look like it attenuates a lot, but you do lose some SNR. Let's go ahead and roll it up and down a couple of times and see. Yeah, it's very clearly better on the side of that signal. Interesting. So for normal tint, this is not ceramic, this is not metallic, you really don't lose much. I would have no problem at all mounting a radar detector behind a tinted windshield with that on it, but you do lose a very slight difference, but you would never notice that in the real world. So we already looked at the Bushnell through normal window tint, and we noticed barely any degradation. And I would almost be willing to bet that the signal loss we did notice was not because of the tint, was just because it was shooting through a thin piece of glass. To test that assumption, we got another car here, one with no tint at all on the window. So let's do the same thing and see what it says. Looking at the signal, now that we've moved things around a bit, we're sitting exactly at minus 40 dB. It's the same setup. We got the test setup in here and the Bushnell there. Mindy, go ahead and roll up the window and let's see if we lose anything. Barely anything. This is exactly the same results as we saw with Mindy's car that had the same window just with tint on it. There is literally no difference. We're losing maybe half a dB. It's exactly the same. And this is really the best apples to apples comparison that you could even get, because both her car and my car use the same chassis. It's the same thickness of the window glass. It's literally the same window, just one with tint, one without. And you can see going up and down, you lose just a little bit of SNR, but other than that, pretty much nothing. So I'm gonna go ahead and declare normal window tint completely safe and transparent to radar. So this next test is one that we've actually been wanting to do for a long time. This is Jason's Tesla Model 3. It's an awesome car, super fast, really, really nice. But there's always been a problem with a lot of Teslas, is that people think you can't put radar detectors on the windshield. Now, I know that with some of the earlier Model S's is kind of where this all started. And I think, like, when I look on the Tesla forums online, a lot of people still say, just out of reflex, that you can't put a radar detector mounted on the windshield of the Tesla. And the reason why is because they have like a nickel coating or a metallic coating on them. So this particular car, Jason's, has not been tinted at all. So this is as clean as it can come from the Tesla factory. So we have the same kind of setup here. We've got the radar gun here shooting through the side window. We already shot through the windshield and verified that it is exactly the same as the side window. So just to make, for ease of use, we're gonna just do the side, but we'll show you. And then we got the Bushnell inside. So let's take a look. Right now, our signal strength is about minus 50 dB, pretty strong. And this is with the window up. So I can tell you right now that you're certainly not getting like a 0 radar detection through the window. You're getting pretty good signal. Jason, do you want to go ahead and drop the window? Look at that. It's exactly 50 dB still. We did not even lose a single decibel rolling down this window. Try it again, like up and down a couple times. We'll see how it looks. You see we're actually picking up a BSM there occasionally. Yeah, honestly guys, this looks really good. And I did say that we have already tested the windshield and it performs exactly the same. So if you've got a newer Tesla Model 3, what is it? Is it 2019 or 2020? 2020. 2020 Tesla Model 3, you are good to go to mount any brand radar detector on your windshield. So the next car that we're gonna look at is Jason's BMW M3. Now, unlike my car, which has no tint on it, and unlike Mindy's car, which is just a standard non-metallic, non-ceramic tint, this particular car has ceramic tint over the windows. This is a really popular type of tint that a lot of car enthusiasts use, so this is gonna be an interesting test. This is actually gonna help us too. We have people submit support tickets asking us, does radar work through all these things? And we've had pretty good ideas, but there's no substitute for actually testing. So we've got our same setup here. The gun is laying on Jason's steering wheel, aiming pretty much right at our radar receiver, which is this guy here. And we're sitting steady at minus 50 dB. Just looking at this before we even roll down the window, I can tell you that this is working just fine. But let's go ahead, roll down the window and see what happens. That's really interesting. So we did not see any improvement of the main carrier, but for some reason we're getting a second radar signal when the window is rolled down. Jason, can you roll that window up again? This is really weird. Go ahead and drop it. Let's investigate this other carrier and see if we can figure out what's causing it. I have a theory. I'm gonna turn down the gain on the radio here. So look at that. If I drop the gain, we don't see it anymore. I think what's happening is that the ceramic tint does affect the signal, but not hugely, just a little bit. And I think that we are overloading this receiver. I think the radar gun is hitting directly at the bore axis of our radio here. And I think that what you are seeing is when the window goes down, you get a little bit more signal strength, and that just pushes our software-defined radio over the threshold of overloading. Because if I tilt this back at the car with the window down, you can see that as it gets, as I get on axis with the gun, the signal strength increases for this second false carrier. Huh, that's a BSM right there, guys. And when I aim it away, you can see that it drops. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah, go ahead and pop that window back up. Yeah. Cool. Well, we learned something, and this is something that I'm actually going to talk to our RF engineers a little bit more about. I am personally confused why we don't see a drop of the main carrier. But yeah, we'll investigate it and kind of see what they think. But this is cool. I guess long story short, we do get a little bit of degradation with ceramic tint, but not enough that you have to worry about it on your daily driver. I would have no problem running a detector in this scenario. Well, we're back inside now, and I hope that that was interesting and a little bit fun for you. I was surprised by a couple of things. I was expecting the Tesla to have a film over it just because some of the earlier ones did, but apparently the newer 2019 and 2020 Tesla Model 3s, you're totally good to run radar through. I was probably most surprised by the ceramic tint on Jason's BMW. That was something that I hadn't seen so far, and I'm still not entirely sure why the window being down allowed us to see a signal that was our receiver being overloaded, but did not drop the signal strength of the carrier. I would have expected the carrier to rise, at which point then we could see the artifacts from the receiver overloading. So that's something I'm going to ask our RF guys about and see what they say. But I think the main takeaway here is that if you have any kind of tint that doesn't have metal in it, whether it's ceramic or normal, you're pretty much good to go. So keep continuing to be safe, and I wish you guys all the best, and hopefully we'll see you next week.